Hello, everyone. Welcome to this season 1 wrap-up of Shift Notes. This is our very last episode for 2020, and we thought that we would take some time out to reflect a little bit on the year that has been ever since we launched this podcast. And it feels like it's been a lifetime since we launched it, but it was only a couple of months ago. It was like, what, in
five,
lockdown?
6?
5, 6 months. Wow. Yeah, it's a lot has happened in that time. And so we thought it'd be a really cool opportunity to get together, chat, the three of us, and talk about our experiences of kind of launching this podcast, look at some of the really cool interviews that we've had and some of our highlights and kind of our own experiences throughout it, and even just talk about our own lives over that 6-month period, because a lot has happened, and we just thought it'd be really cool to share and give you guys the update.
Yeah, some of the curveball stuff that's just really been like things that maybe you guys don't see on that side, and we probably didn't expect to run into, but yeah, really be really cool to kind of share, or hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully you find it entertaining. Casual chat, guys.
A lot of ups and downs and laughs and sad times, but it's been a year. There's been a lot to learn from it, so it's
here now.
It has been a year, that's for sure.
All right, well, so we're going to ask ourselves a few questions today. We're going to run through a few topics, and we thought that the first topic we should cover is the fact that we've actually put this podcast on. It started off as an idea, and chat a little bit about our experience of bringing a podcast to life. So, Mikey, I don't know if you want to take this one and kick off with it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, first and foremost, obviously, I think none of us have ever done anything like this before. And off the back of that, probably none of us have really edited videos or understood how sound works to a certain degree with this kind of thing. So not only were there technical pieces, but obviously the whole presentation piece has been pretty insane as well, right, guys?
Yeah.
But I think probably one of the craziest experiences is when you think of what a podcast is and the way you structure questions, where you try and put questions together. You almost look into the person's mind who you're going to talk to, and you almost hope that they're going to answer in a certain way. And I guess probably one of the biggest things we've taken away from here is a lot of people go the complete opposite way, which is also awesome, and it's really exciting, and it means that the story kind of goes a different way. But I think by the end you end up starting to get quite tactical with how you put things together and how you ask questions and how you leave them as open as possible. But it's definitely a massive learning curve with understanding how we can get the best or the information that we'd quite like to hear. But in turn, it doesn't actually matter, because the fact of the matter is it needs to be real and we want to hear what they want to say. That's the logic behind it.
Yeah. No, I think that that pretty much sums it up. Yeah, it's just you just never know what you're going to get on the day. And especially with some of the interviews where we genuinely have never met these people before. And the first time we're meeting them is just for a camera, just like, hi. Yeah, I think one of the experiences well, first of all, actually, I just want to say that for the listeners out there, both Mikey and Laurie have done a lot more work behind the scenes for this than I have, because I don't really have a laptop. So Mikey's been doing the sound guy, Laurie's just been the coordinator. And so hats off to both of these lovely people to kind of organizing this sort of stuff. My experience really was just kind of I'll just turn up on the day and I'll ask some questions and have a bit of a laugh and go from there.
It's like a bit like a rock.
Yeah. Might get shift. No.
I feel like you're underselling yourself here.
You've done a lot.
You've helped write, intros and help come up with timestamps and all this kind of stuff. So it's definitely been there's definitely been a workload, a very surprising workload. But everyone's kind of contributed a lot. And really,
probably one thing to note on this is no matter how much we do background and putting together the production piece, we all still probably have 2 hours of Zoom meet's per week to kind of go over what we're going to cover and how we're going to cover it and what we'd like to talk about and vice versa. So it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But awesome.
The experience has been pretty mind-blowing, because like you said, none of us have actually really done, well, I definitely have not done anything like this before, and I guess we're quite lucky that we've surrounded ourselves with people who have done stuff like this before. And we had a chat with Sean over in Victoria in Canada, And I think he was a massive sort of like little step that we needed just to kind of like give us an insight of like where to go, how to do things. And he's, his podcast is pretty awesome as well. It's called Post Shift, if anybody's wondering.
Yeah, that was really cool.
There you go.
I think from starting this off as like an idea that we kind of chatted about over a beer to actually pulling it to life has been an incredible experience. Most of it has been, like you say, flying by the seat of our pants and just being like, okay, well, let's just try it. Let's just put something out there, and then hopefully people might listen. And if they do, that's great. But we just hope that we can kind of bring value in some way to someone. And I feel like for me, some of the most surprising experiences of this whole situation have been like, well, some of the coolest things have been like, you know, finding our flow. It took us a little while to figure out like how we were going to ask questions, and there's a dynamic of three of us trying to interview a guest and share our own stories. And I think it was by the time we got to Tim Etherington Judge's episode that it was just like, oh, that felt really good. Like we just found our flow, found a way to structure questions. We figured out that the best way for us was to like take on topics and then, you know, one person to own a topic and then move on to the next. And that was really cool. Like finding that sweet spot where we're like, okay, starting to feel comfortable now, starting to, I don't know, get that flow going as a team. So that was really
cool. It's kind of like when you work in service, right? You know, your first couple of shifts are just like a little bit rocky. You don't really know where things are. You don't want to do anything or upset anyone. And then after that, you're kind of just walking around just like, yeah, I know where the toilet is, and I know where the paper is.
I quite like the pressure piece as well. Like you mentioned before, Laurie, when you press that record button, like we just have to. It's just all go. Like,
well, that's what Sean said, right? He was just like, you just got to go for it. Like, you know, if people don't listen, they don't listen. But at least you tried. At least you did it. So,
it's like diving into a swimming pool. You just got to do it. Like, just go in and hope for the best.
Yeah.
On that note, we don't really do much editing either. Like we don't pull a lot of stuff out, so we're quite good at keeping time now these days.
I mean, the only one we had to edit was Charlie's one, but that's because the whole chat was 2 hours long.
That was awesome.
We got better at timing each other as well, so that was really good. Like while we do our episodes, we always write comments for each other, being like, "All right, Mikey, 5 minutes, wrap it up." So,
some of the guests must be like, are they trying to rush me? Like, what's happening here?
The other really cool thing was some of the people that we got on. Like, I think we all surprised ourselves by some of the guests we were able to get on. Like, like Rachel's like episode, that was incredible.
That was incredible.
We're like, oh my gosh, she's too important to give us time. So
I just like the level of diversity in both. From everything from culture to gender, but all the way through from different industries as well, and how that perspective could possibly roll over. I think, you know, specifically Jared at the end there was really cool in the fact that it was, you know, very sports orientated, but it was game time, which is like really, you know, it's kind of like the on the stage piece for as a bartender or front of house staff member.
And as we go on to next year, we want to kind of keep that up. We want to try and continue asking people from different backgrounds and different parts of hospitality, and some people outside of hospitality, because you just learn so much from the different perspectives in the different areas. So the more unique perspective we can get on the show, the better.
Yeah. Because I think when we initially started, the idea for the concept was to kind of like take inspiration from people who have gone on to succeed in their paths and their careers. But I think now it's just become more than that. Like obviously there's a big element of that, but now it's become actually we just want to hear people's stories, because in some way it is going to relate to hospitality, and in some way it's going to be able to kind of like improve and help motivate people. So yeah, I think it's just, from what we started initially, it's just become into a bigger, better thing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, this whole doing the podcast has been quite interesting in the scenario, in a way of like when we've been filming. For me, like myself, like I've found myself in very, very bizarre scenarios. But Mikey, like did you find any like weird places or times that we had to do any episodes?
Man, I mean, I guess probably specifically the last 3 months, I've been traveling backwards and forwards quite a lot with work bits. Probably most notably, I think we did our intro, and I was currently moving into the workshop space we're in an empty room with with no internet on my phone kind of thing, but we're also trying to make sure that the sound works. It's all been pretty crazy. But yeah, I think one of the most nuts ones of those for me was, I think I was down in Wellington and I flew in hot for, we had a whole heap of prep to do, and I came in and I literally walked in the door 5 minutes before we started the Amy Alexander episode and jumped on my computer, and then we just rolled straight into it. And I'd just flown in from Wellington at like, I think six o'clock that morning. That was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But how about yourself, G, and Laurie? You've done lots of little interviews from random Lion offices and random places.
Yeah. I think I think that the most interesting thing that like the listeners or anyone who's listening to this would probably not realize is how many awkward times we had to run these Zoom calls or interviews just to try and fit around schedules and time zones. So like we had to, even just within the three of us, oh my God, we have the most crazy schedules, and trying to even get the three of us on a Zoom call is like a puzzle. You're like, where in the week are we going to fit this? Because Gian's running his own business, Mikey's running his own business. I've got 9-to-5 corporate world, and we're trying to figure out how to fit things in. And we've done Zoom calls at like 7 in the morning. We've done them at like 9 at night, and just trying to like time in with the UK. Like when we did Jason's episode, it was at 9 p.m. on a Monday, and it's so it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do today? I'm just going to try and cook dinner, get everything done as fast as possible so I can be ready to go for this 9 p.m. Zoom interview, which is, yeah, it's been crazy. But one of my favorite ones was also going down to Wellington, and I was working remotely out of there, and I was there for work for a couple of days. I had a 9 a.m. meeting, so we had to fit in our Zoom call at 7 a.m. and the office is all locked up. No one was there, so I had to like find a swipe key, get one off someone the day before it to try and get into the office before anyone else was there from the entire Wellington team, and set myself up in this workstation and hope for the best that no one would come in and walk in on the interview halfway through. So yeah, it's been crazy.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, because it'd be really funny to actually look back on the videos aspects of these podcasts, because I started off with hair, and B in like Australia, and then I was in quarantine in Auckland and in Wellington, and just kind of like floating around, just kind of like Mikey traveling around as well. Just like, it was pretty nuts to think how we've managed to get this all together. Because also like the funny side of it is that like we are preaching the word of like, be kind to yourself and look after yourself, and take some time out for you and during the day. But we are all completely doing the opposite. But we're all doing it because we love it, and we want people to hear the good words.
Hopefully doing it a little bit of it for you guys.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And to be fair, like, there's definitely been a workload, and there's been time that we've had to really carve out for this. It's been such a highlight, like just catching up with you guys regularly and just having these. And sometimes I just have like the shittest day and just it'd be so full on, and then we just have a chat and think of some questions, and I just leave laughing by the end of it. So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, awesome. One thing I didn't mention is I think one of the most hilarious, and this was not an episode, but this was more the catch-ups. I think we've mentioned it a few times, but I'm usually out of action from 5 till 8 with our wee man, and often our meetings involve me in my car with my laptop down so I don't wake anybody up in the middle of the night.
Like it's just Mikey with this car light shining on his face and just complete darkness around him. It honestly looked like we were just watching a horror film about to start. And Gian as well. Gian did a whole episode in quarantine, which is hilarious.
That was super dicey, just because, like, obviously you got a hotel full of people who are using the internet. So it's like, am I frozen? Am I not frozen? Can you still hear me? Like, yeah.
It was we were just like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We almost, Mikey almost went out and dropped him like a hotspot phone. And
That's right, yeah. Crazy. Well, I guess the next piece we wanted to cover was what we've been working on in our lives. I guess a little bit of an update from all of us, and maybe an idea of what we've achieved since day one. I feel like we've actually all outside of this achieved quite a lot. We've put together something that we feel is quite cool, and I feel like we've achieved a level where we're like real comfortable with it. But what else have we been up to? Maybe you can kick off on this one, Laurie.
Oh my goodness. If you look back to when we started talking about this and when we launched episode 1, I think all of our lives have changed a lot. And like you say, we've all achieved some pretty monumental things. So yeah, it'll be quite cool to share some of this. So a couple of things that have happened in my life since launching episode 1. In the background, I've sat some exams. So I did my 1 exam, which were pretty full on. Like I did my fortified exam. I was supposed to do it about 2 years ago, but I never ended up doing it because my brother got into an accident. And so I was kind of like, okay, cool, pick this exam. And leading up to it is just so much study, like on top of my already pretty demanding job. And I was just trying to do half an hour to an hour each morning to just try and really cement in and learn as much as I need to. And you just have to, like, so I'm sitting my level 4s, my WSET level 4 diploma, which is a long course, and it's really full on and really in depth. So anyone who's wanting to get into wine or wanting to kind of upskill themselves, it's probably the most valuable thing I've ever done in terms of really upskilling my confidence in tasting, giving me access and like regular practice of tasting wines from all across the world, and helping me understand how to assess a wine or a spirit in a very unbiased way. So like really understand and write arguments for why I think a wine is of a certain quality or not, or whatever it might be, and really develop a deeper understanding of the product I'm working with. But it just takes so much work. And yeah, I think at the start, when did I sit? I think I sat my exam in October, and just trying to fit around the podcast and all the study and the work was absolutely crazy. And I didn't have a life. Like I kind of disappeared. People were like, "Where were you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just didn't. I couldn't do anything else." But
October imploded, right? The whole
yeah,
of October just imploded.
it was horrible. It was a very hard time. But I got to the exam, sat it, and was like, I haven't gotten my results yet. They should be back any day now, like really soon. But was just in there and felt really confident with all the work that I'd done and the questions that I got asked in the wines. I'm pretty sure I could figure out exactly what I was tasting. So I was just so relieved about that, and really happy with all the work that I'd put in for it. So it pays off. So that was one thing.
Yeah, amazing.
The next thing was we went through massive company changes. Just like many other people, you know, COVID has hit people in many different ways. So while we were talking about bringing hope to the hospitality industry and trying to give people a bit of purpose and lead a shining light, I myself had to deal with a pretty hard month or so where I had a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of my teammates were affected, and it was honestly, what was that? That was quite recently. It was only a couple of weeks ago that kind of finished up, and yeah, that was really hard to try and be positive and still like shine light for other people, but then also be like, oh my God, what's happening with my own life here? So that was and during that time also learning how to be very honest and have really hard conversations and upfront conversations to people who are much higher than me. That was a huge learning experience as well. So yeah, I don't think a lot of people knew about that, and yeah, it was quite hard, and these guys saw a little bit of it, and yeah, this year hasn't been easy for anyone, like myself included. There's been a lot of challenge. Yeah.
100%, man. There's been massive challenges. I guess that's another level that you don't necessarily see. So it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about yourself, G? You might have done a couple of things.
Yeah, I mean, moved back home, moved back to Wellington, which is really nice. Yeah, Wellington's always going to have a little piece of my heart, so it's always nice to kind of be here and see friends and catch up and do the old things and go and relive those memories. But yeah, in the time that we've done this whole podcast, opened up my own business like Mikey. But at this time, it's a bar. It's a small little bar. My business partner and I, really, really good friend of mine, one of my best mates. We lived together in London, and then with COVID happening, we had to kind of like go our separate ways. He was meant to be going to Canada, but then we ended up back in New Zealand, and we always kind of talked about the things that we really enjoyed about hospitality and bars. And he came up with the name, which I still think to this day is very, very clever. It's called Yaki Soda. It's a play on the yakisoba noodles dish. But the idea of the bar is that it takes inspiration from the Peruvian Japanese subculture called Nikkei. So we focus on doing sort of like Peruvian street food and embracing the Japanese theatrics and drinking culture of highballs. And it's been really fun. It's been challenging. It's been one of those learning curves where like I've been quite fortunate to have opened up a few venues for a few different people, and you get given a budget and you're like, yeah, cool, I can do this. But now when it's your own money, you're kind of just like, oh, maybe I don't need that bottle of whiskey, or maybe I don't need that just yet. So that's been a big learning curve. It was always going to be like, is this the right time? Is this not the right time? Are we going to go back into a lockdown? What's going to happen with the world? Are we even going to be able to get any products and stuff like that? But from what we're doing, and because it's quite a niche concept, thankfully, the people of Wellington are really quite open to the idea and have been supporting us quite a lot. And again, a lot of that support comes from the industry. And it's really nice to know that even though I haven't lived here in a few years, I've still got a few friends here that are always willing to help you out and look after you and support you, which has been amazing. But yeah, opening up a business in a time like this in the world is very risky. But yeah, I think we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it was whilst we were doing this podcast series that had one of those like light bulb moments where I was like, oh wow, like definitely, and it's one of the things that we wanted to kind of like prove by doing this podcast is that, get some inspiration from people. And mine truly came from Jason Clark, just kind of hearing his story and how he portrays himself, how he's built himself into what he is now, where he came from. And I was just had one of those moments of just like, yeah, I reckon I could do that. Why not? Let's give it a go. What else am I going to lose apart from some money? But it all comes around. It's fine. But yeah, no, that was probably like the biggest thing that's happened for me. With doing this podcast, you definitely get to learn a lot about yourself. And I guess doing the whole quarantine and doing months of lockdown in Australia with my family, you definitely tend to learn a lot about yourself anyway. So yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at.
And over lockdown and while you were in Australia, you started like picking up running a lot and sleeping a lot.
Yeah. It was it's pretty crazy. Kind of just started to look after myself, just cooking a lot, everything from scratch, and lost a lot of weight, which is awesome. And just trying to keep that up and trying to make sure that every sort of like bit that I've worked on now, I kind of keep it going and keep the sort of like the mental and physical health going.
It's hard around this time of year sometimes, but
it's very hard.
Cool. And what was it like moving back to Wellington?
Yeah, it's been good. It's you really forget how windy it really is.
Yeah.
You forget how windy it is, and you really forget how strong the coffee is. Spent years just like immuning myself with filter coffee, and in the moment I had like an actual proper Wellington coffee, I was just like, felt like I was high. I was mental. It's too much caffeine. But
it's
no,
so good.
It is really good. It is nice to be home and see old friends and meet the new parts of their family, like little babies and stuff like that. But yeah, now it's coming into summertime. Had a few good days of some sunshine, and yeah, really looking forward to it.
Oh. And Mikey, what about you? I'm gonna unmute you. There you go.
Back when we started chatting, pre even starting these podcasts, which seemed to take months in the processing and the planning anyway. I finished up at a restaurant, Paris Butter, which I loved a lot, and I also had a small child. So that was pretty epic. I think when me and Laurie first started talking, he was about 4 weeks old. So now he is literally tomorrow he's 11 months old.
My God.
Yeah. So that's pretty nuts. And that's just been crazy, both a blessing in disguise and both like nuts life balance overall through lockdown and everything. It's been crazy. But yeah, also I've finally launched my bottled drinks brand, which is the kind of first part of my workshop project, which has been really cool. A lot of hard work, again, like G, learning and understanding business sides from the ground up, doing 100% of it myself pretty much as well, which has been all pretty crazy. It's been hands-on, but loads and loads of learning, which has been awesome. And yeah, definitely relied on a lot of friends in the industry who have helped out so much. So that's really cool. You've probably seen this space behind me go from basically empty to too much stuff. So this is, we've basically built essentially a workshop in all of that. So I currently co-use this space with another awesome beverage producer, the guys at Poor Man Beverages, Brandon, which has been really cool as well. So lots and lots going on. Yeah, man, I don't even know. I've been traveling around the country as well. Luckily enough, I've been able to see G, I think 3 times since he's been back, which is probably the most I've ever seen him, including when like I used to live in Auckland before I left for London and vice versa. So I think I was seeing him every week in October. The crazy October month. Yeah.
And Mikey, you just launched your drinks like literally a couple of weeks ago. How has that been received so far, and how's it been?
Yeah, it's been pretty awesome. I mean, I guess probably with COVID, there was a lot of time to think about things, but also a lot of setbacks, the likes of licensing and things that you probably you never really think of when you first jump into something like this, like printing and design work, and then actual ordering of liquid and glassware, and then barcodes and just everything. It's been really cool. And I think, I've been able to put as much thought into it as possible. So it's been really well received. I'm real stoked with it. It's still very young. But yeah, get in there and buy your family some old fashions and some delicious bitters for their at-home alcohol cabinets.
Where can people Where can people check out your products?
Ballanddrinks.com.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're staying at the QT in Auckland, my drinks are in the rooms too. Currently, our kegs are on at the QT in Auckland as well. So we're doing collabs. Myself and Brandon are doing a collaborative piece, and we run the cocktail taps there. So definitely jump on and try them out. All local ingredients. And basically, our production piece is all about understanding how to produce things as sustainable as possible. We carbon offset all of our electricity and our production electricity. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, we're trying to just look after local Kiwi brands as much as possible, trying to keep it local after what's going on. So yeah, outside of that, jump in and make sure you fire me a message especially if you're trade, if you wanted some trade pricing on bitters and that kind of thing. We've got some fun stuff.
Nice.
I don't plug.
Little plug there. There is one more thing I want to bring up as well that has happened since kicking off this whole segment or the whole podcast, and that's some of the healthy hospice stuff that we've been working on as well. And we literally this weekend, so on Saturday morning, kind of finished up our run club. So a couple of months ago, pretty much had the idea. We just got out of lockdown too. We had this whole idea this year that we were going to try and run as many activations and get events out and get people in hospitality doing some like fun things that, don't necessarily center around drinking. And one of them was a run club, and we went into second lockdown. So it was like, oh my God, we're not gonna be able to make this happen. We got out, pitched one of the beer brands, and managed to get some sponsorship to get a whole team out to the Spates West Coaster, which if anyone has never done it before, it's a crazy trail run on the west coast of Auckland. So you're running through Bethel's into Tahanga, and it is just uphill. Like it's 600 meters of elevation, which is like running up Mount Eden 4 times. So
Disgusting.
it was hectic. And we kind of started off the idea, and I was like, okay, well, I've got like 2.5 weeks to find 20 bartenders who want to run and do this coached running program for 8 weeks, and then do a race at the end of it. And at first I was like, oh my God, like, I'm so sure people are going to, like, you know, people are definitely going to want to do this. And about 3 days, and I was like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, how am I going to get people to commit to this hectic race? But in 2.5 weeks, we managed to absolutely fill the entire team up with the most incredible humans. And it has been the most rewarding journey ever. We get to train every week together. We get to go on runs, hang out. We've done yoga classes together. And as of this Saturday, we completed the States West Coaster, which was beautiful and stunning and just the coolest thing. So yeah, really stoked with that too.
Yeah, that's
It was
amazing.
awesome. You did so well, Laurie, to put all of that together. And yeah, I'm stoked to have been able to be part of it too.
Yeah, Mikey did a run too, so it was really. And we have to bring it down to Wellington due next year, so that'll be the mission. But yeah, just seeing some people's life, like everyone who's part of that, I saw their lives change in one way or another. And some of the guys were just saying that, you know, they'd like dropped smoking, or, you know, they're saying no to things, and because they're so excited to wake up early the next day and come hang out at run clubs. It was just really cool. So yeah, absolutely stoked.
Yes, so good to see. It was so awesome. Yeah, just watching everybody's persona and how you created such a tight-knit team. Everybody was just so driven, and like you said, it's really hard to get bartenders and hospitality stuff to kind of shake out of their norm, because we feel like we have a bit of a schedule, and that schedule often involves late night drinking.
Yeah.
So how do you shake that? And yeah, I think you actually mentioned in a message a few hours ago, like the whole going into 16-hour shifts that aren't necessarily healthy, but also off the bat not being part of your normal schedule. So not having coffee, or not having at one point we were doing lots of food stuff, making sure we were eating healthy and that kind of thing. And that's just it's a big curveball, right? Crazy.
Yeah.
All for the better. But
yeah, and it was challenging, but I just think that, like, in hospitality, sometimes it's hard to find, you know, times or hobbies or friends who want to get up and do stuff outside of the bar, and just providing that space and environment for people to connect with each other in the mornings, have coffees together. Like, a lot of the guys would stick around and have breakfast after training, and that was awesome. That was really cool. So yeah, so lots of stuff has happened. All of us have achieved a lot in the last couple of months, and just, I mean, if nothing else, really cool to be in this little trio and get to share so many cool successes with all of you.
How many times have we hung out together in this whole last like, nine months?
So together, the three of us are yet to have our staff party, our first catch up. We've hung out separately in twos, but we're yet to, I don't know, we need to get G up to Auckland, or we need to do a trip down to Wellington.
Vice versa, yeah. See how we go.
Cool. All right. Well, on that note, next topic that we wanted to chat about were actually some of the episodes and the ones that were the most impactful for us. So maybe, Gian, if you want to kick this one off, you've already talked a little bit about how JC's episode literally inspired you to open a bar. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, all of them have had like quite an impact on myself. I think for all of us, really. Hopefully to the listeners as well. Everyone that we spoke to, like we said, there's some people there that we just didn't think that we'd be able to even have a chat with, or have a chance to have a chat with. But JC was one that really kind of stuck out to me. Like, I've known JC now for a few years. I'm quite lucky to call him a friend, and he's even when he was working in New Zealand, he was a massive inspiration, not just for myself, but for a lot of us here in Wellington, but also around the country. But just the way that he spoke about his passions, and that, like, from where he started off to now where he is, being a brand ambassador for a highly respected whiskey. It was just so nice to kind of see someone that breathes and lives hospitality as much as he does. And obviously now he works in a different part of the industry, but his main focus is to make people happy. And the way that he does that is by training and educating future generations of hospitality. And so his episode was really kind of hit me, because it was one of those moments of like, wow, yeah, you know what, I feel like I could do this. Like, he's given me that pep talk that you would get at like a rugby game or something, that really kind of like stuck with me. But it also just reminded me of our first episode, not the first episode between the three of us, but our first interview that we had, which was with Charles. And I think to this day, like, it's still one of the more like real interviews that we've had, because Charlie lives and breathes hospitality. He, especially, he's the icon of New Zealand hospitality. In my eyes, I personally think that Charlie is the person of New Zealand hospitality. He's someone that you want to have around. He's someone that you'd love to be served by. But he's also someone that knows that when you need your own space, he'll be there for you. But he gives you that space. And just always nice to have a chat with him, because you just kind of forget about time, and you forget about everything else, and you're just like, yeah, we could sit here for hours and literally talk, which is what we did.
And always make time for you as well.
Yeah, that's the good thing about Charlie, is that he has so much love for people, which I think why he really is the ideal person for hospitality, especially to represent New Zealand as well.
We talked pretty long and hard about who we were going to have for the first, and I think he kind of set the tone for where our heads were with regards to what this was, and a lot of that was kind of that homegrown. I don't know, maybe hero is not the right word, but that definitive piece of what our industry is and what we love about our industry, and it's that hospo hug, as Charlie taught me, right?
He's done so much to build up his community as well, which is really admirable.
Yeah, so much to build his community, but also not forget where he came from. And he has so much love and respect for his city, and it shows, and people love him back. The whole city, he's just become one of those people that I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him, like, Charlie Day. But no, yeah, Charlie, I've got a lot of time for that man, and I genuinely can't wait to hang out with him again.
Yeah,
wicked.
What about you, Mikey?
Well, I mean, as we've said, so many of the episodes, like, we walk out of them and often we'll sit on a message and be like, wow, that was massive, or holy shit, that hit me, or, and we often say it afterwards in posts and stuff, is, that really resonated. But probably one of the coolest ones for me, and it might just be because I'm a little bit of a geek with the little bits that you never really hear too much about, but was Helen from 50/50's episode. So I guess probably one of the coolest parts about it is she's somebody who I knew before that I didn't really know too much about, which is kind of awesome as well. But she's so passionate about the industry, which is what we all love. She had this kind of grassroots attitude about her where, she's growing her own stuff and she wants it to be local and clean and green, and she has a straight up opinions, but they're justified, and it was just real tidy to hear. And she'd had these crazy daunting experiences that literally just made me think that I'd probably never ever put myself in that situation. And then I think we all kind of realized afterwards we've all been in that situation in some way, shape or form, from being thrown in the deep end in a bar that you don't feel welcome in, or don't feel like you're up to the task, all the way through to, being on stage in front of 150 people in bright lights, chatting rubbish about some drink that you made up. It's all quite crazy and daunting. But yeah, some of the pieces I personally took away from that were just some of the basic business acumen that people should really have, like these tools and tips that often in New Zealand people are so stoic about that they don't give in. It's like a little, oh no, we do it that way, that's our little trick. So it was really nice to hear tips and tricks and understanding and being like, don't be an idiot. This is actually how it can work. So that was really cool. The bits behind the finances and the breakdown of, 30% costs, 30% cost that goes 30% staff costs. And then you're looking at these kind of cuts. They're all things that we never really hear about. And we've all gone through this, both myself and G opening businesses recently, and Laurie has through management times and probably a lot through in her job at the moment. But a lot of these aren't things that are covered, and I work quite often with bar managers and restaurateurs as a consultant, and I'm telling you now, globally, there's a lot of people who work in high role positions in hospitality that don't know how to cost beverages or food. And that's not necessarily their fault. It's because they haven't been trained properly, or these things haven't been available for whatever reason. So no, it was really, really awesome to kind of hear something that was that solid.
Yeah, definitely agree. For myself, I found some of the really kind of impactful, I mean, there's a lot of really impactful ones. I mean, Rachel's episode was really interesting for me to hear from someone who's working at such a high level in government, and actually advising the Prime Minister on small businesses, which is just incredible to get this really cool macro view of the industry, like this wider industry lens of what's going on, what's important. And, you know, she's a CEO of a company here in New Zealand, and just really interesting to learn from her about, you know, her ethos and some of the practices they have in the company. So that was, I think, what was that, episode 4 maybe? It was Rachel's episode. Yeah, just really, really interesting. I found Alison Kwan's episode quite really impactful as well, from the sense that, I mean, we knew Alison Kwan years ago in here in New Zealand, and the fact that she's gone over to just outside of San Francisco and opened up her own place and managed to survive over this crazy time. And she's in arguably one of the worst hit countries in the world, and has just made it happen with a smile on her face. And she's obviously going through huge challenges, but I just find her so inspirational. And even hearing some of her stories around, you know, like how they've managed to keep, you know, what they've had to do to adjust or to pivot their business to, you know, work with the times. But then some of the background story behind the venue as well. I didn't know, you know, there's some really cool stories about some of the dishes there, and, you know, how they were influenced by her heritage. And yeah, I just found that really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
And probably one of the episodes that probably hit us as a team was the very last episode we did, JT's episode. And we actually all, as a team, had a chat about this. And even a week later, we were all like, wow, that episode really sat with us. So I don't know, Gian, you had a story around that. I don't know if you want to share it.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't had a chance to listen to the episode, highly recommend it. It was just a genuine, honest conversation, and to come from someone that has no experience in hospitality, but to have that sort of like team mentality, and what makes a team thrive and what makes an individual be part of a team, was really, really interesting. And something that I learned through that conversation, through that interview, was about the imposter syndrome. And he spoke about his experience, about his name, and how he couldn't, growing up, he had a moment where he changed his name because he didn't, people couldn't say his last name, and he was embarrassed, and he didn't know, he didn't know really how to react, and he just changed it one day, and he copped a little bit of slack for it. Not in a negative way, but just more of like, people just knew that he wasn't being himself. And that really hit me, because I did exactly the same thing. Growing up, I was like, my name is quite long, Giancarlo. So for a lot of people growing up, like they couldn't say my name. And so for most of my life, I've been known as Giancarlo. And even to this day, my oldest friends that I've known since, well, my best mate, James, since I've known since I was 7, and then my other like very good best mates, since I've known since I was 10, 11, they still all call me Gene. They don't call me Gian, they don't call me Giancarlo, they call me Gene. And it's just a little reminder of like, oh yeah, like I was a bit embarrassed, I guess, about my name, and it's like just trying to like hide away from that. But now I'm Giancarlo, whatever you want to call me.
Any of the above.
Any of the above, Jesus, go for it. Yeah, it was. Yeah, the whole interview was just like, wow, this is nuts. But again, I guess the whole thing with these conversations is just to kind of remind people that you're not alone, and other people feel the same way, and it's just about having that conversation, and you can kind of talk things out. And I think he was a very, I guess, like a shining light to kind of be like, ah, yeah, sweet, it's all
Mm.
good.
Yeah.
There was something he said that really got me as well in that episode. It was around how we were talking about life balance, and he was just like, okay, well, if you're not having life balance, you really need to ask yourself, like, why? Because we all know what to do, but it's like, why are you so busy? What are you trying to prove by being so busy? Like, what and it just, that really hit me, because I find in my, and I guess all of us can probably relate to this, but we are always taking on so much. And I find that my schedules sometimes are hectic. And that just made me really think, being like, why? Why do I feel like I have to say yes to everything? Or what am I trying to prove? And it really got me, because it kind of made me almost think back to, like, even my childhood, where like a lot of, I was validated through my achievements and things like that. And I was like, wait, I actually don't need to stretch myself out to the point of burning out. So like since doing that episode, I've just been thinking a lot more carefully, being like, okay, well, do I need to say yes to this? Like, am I just trying to prove anything here? Or can I start saying no and just taking more time out for myself and prioritizing myself a bit more? So that's really sat with me for the last couple of weeks.
I think it's a pretty classic Hospo trait to kind of put work, but also your work family first. And I think that becomes almost that yes man syndrome too.
Yeah.
I'm definitely guilty of it a lot, and we can definitely kind of sit back. But again, that piece with JT really kind of resonates, and it gives you a pretty cool understanding of that. Yeah.
And just those boundaries, like learning to be like, actually, no, like I'm more important now.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's
cool.
Yeah. What about you, Mikey? Was there anything that resonated?
One piece that was quite close to the end of the episode that really got me was often we struggle to kind of activate ourselves to do something and to really kind of jump into it. So this whole term 1% of like, you don't need to do it a whole whack. You just start off with 1%, and that should get you started. And the analogy that he used was like, man, just he was talking about getting up and doing something, and it was like, well, just put your shoes at the door, like put your shoes next to the door, and that's going to help push you to go for that run, or go and do what you need to do in those shoes. And I was like, fuck, that's amazing. And it's that trigger. You set yourself up a trigger, and that's the 1% that leads to the 25% or whatever it's going to be. And it's that stepping stone. And I think we all probably jump into the trap of being like, oh, to start off with, we have to go whole hog, or we have to smash into it. But it was a really healthy way of understanding how you can actually really tackle a challenge or a task.
So he got that from a book called Atomic Habits. If anyone hasn't read it, I highly recommend. It just kind of gives you a super cool look at how to build habits. And that 1% rule was something that like I learned about maybe like a year ago, and honestly it's changed my life, because it's like doing those small things. So rather than being like, I'm going to run 5 times a week, it's like, I'm going to run 2 minutes a day. And then once you're running 2 minutes a day is nothing, right? It's like, fuck, I can do that at any time. And it's so, but what you do when you start running that 2 minutes a day is like, once you're out, you start running longer. So it's just like that mental commitment of like being like, okay, well, I need to do something for 2 minutes. And then once you start doing it, you actually end up doing much longer than you would. And so I don't know, it's just really cool way to break down a habit and start small and actually do something, rather than I don't know, I can be a perfectionist and I can be like, if I'm not going to do an hour, then it doesn't count. But it's actually I don't know, really, really cool. Any other episodes? Tim's episode is pretty cool.
Yeah, Tim's episode was awesome. pretty awesome. Again, that was just kind of like a raw, real conversation, and I think he was the only one that was kind of like that spoke to his mental health battles and how he's overcome them, and talking about depression and suicide, which is a very very big topic to talk about, but I feel Tim's become that sort of like figure that, you know, it's okay to talk about things like that. So he just wants to make it a normal conversation, not something to be shying away from.
Yeah. One thing he nailed on that one as well was the sleep is your superpower, which I know it's written in a lot of books, and I know through Healthy Hospo it's something that Laurie and Tim have kind of covered quite a lot of. But before that episode, I didn't really kind of buy into what it is, and since then I've actually been like pushing my sleep quite heavily. The phone, if you guys have seen the episode, the leave your phone out of the bedroom technique has been something that I've been doing, not only just for like going to bed, but also in my own personal time. Me and Jade leave our phones in the kitchen when we sit on the couch or hang out, and it just kind of adds to your personal time, I guess. It's just a kind of smart way of doing it. But yeah, the sleep has been crazy, and especially for us, we have a little guy who wakes us up super early in the morning, so bright and bushy.
Yeah,
it's kind of an incentive though.
Yeah, sleep is the most important thing. Like, we do a lot of workshops, and learning about sleep has completely changed my life. And if anyone hasn't already heard about it or read it, Why We Sleep is a book by a guy called Matthew Walker. So we do a lot of
amazing.
Yeah, read it. It will change your life. You have no idea how much, like, everyone's like, I only need to sleep 6 hours, I'm gonna be hardcore, and or sleep 5 hours tonight and brush it off. But there's so much. Sleep is the most important thing you'll ever do. So yeah.
Hey guys, do we have any surprises? Did we learn anything about some of our guests that really surprised us throughout the episodes?
I found out that my best friend used to make pizza for her first job. This is Amy Alexander, and she still hasn't even made me a pizza. I was very surprised, very upset about that. If you're listening, Amy, I'm waiting for my pizza.
I used to make pizza for my second job. I've never made you pizza either. Maybe. No, I haven't.
No, you haven't.
What about you, Laurie?
Probably Peter's upbringing. So Peter was our mental health episode, and I didn't know prior to that he had grown up in the Serbian war zone. That was, for me, just...
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Crazy.
That was like, when he said that, I think I was having like quite a hard time around that month. Like, it was quite a stressful month, and I was like, whoa, like, at least I'm in a country where I don't have to worry about my whole city being bombed.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah. Mine was actually Helen again, but it was the research into Helen. I think when we were talking about it, and then you guys had sent through a message, and I was like, really? Helen had done all this? And I met, we talk about it in the episode, but I met Helen in Queenstown over the bar. She came, sat down, very humble chef. All she talked about was flavor, and we loved it. It was like a bit of a geek off, but she just come sit down and have a chat, and we didn't know all of these superstar chefs in these amazing kitchens that she'd worked in completely different, high-end kitchens in different languages, and she was running a place called Rata, and I knew none of this until we did some research, and then when we talked to her, it was just like, whoa, it's even further, it's even crazier. So, it's amazing how much you don't know about people in our industry too, which is all the more why we do this.
Yeah, I guess, having done all now 10 episodes with many more to come, I guess we learned a lot of lessons, right? Like, what would you say, Laurie, was like your favorite lesson that you learned from all of this?
I thought, there are so many lessons. I thought that, like, some of, what was it, Peter's episode, the mental health episode, I thought there's some great lessons there, and just some great reminders. He just is so practical about how to, like, just address your shit. And, like, everyone has shit. You need to, spell it out, address it, acknowledge it. So I think, like, in my own life, I've gone through stuff and I've buried it and been like, okay, I just need to be strong and get through it. Where, he has some where that's not true. Like, if you don't acknowledge it and you don't, allow it to be acknowledged, then it's just gonna it's gonna build, and it's gonna be there, and you're gonna hold on to it. So I really love some of his practical tips on just calling things out, addressing it, acknowledging it, and
be true to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, awesome. I from my side, probably some of our research pieces. So we covered a little bit of this in the chat so far, but a lot of background work we do. And pre one of our chats, it was actually with Rachel. We've all gone to school in New Zealand, but I feel like we probably weren't up to scratch with our te reo and understanding how the Māori culture works. And so we really wanted to make sure that we didn't cross any boundaries, or we really kind of understood what to talk about and how to talk about, specifically with kono and the whole whakapapa around it. So we actually sat on a chat like this for, it must have been an hour and a half, with a friend of Laurie's, and now I hope a friend of mine too, Kaylin, and he kind of gave us this whole full like cultural background on how everything works, and we were just, I think we were all quite gobsmacked afterwards of like, wow, why is this not something we learned at school? Why is this not something that's focused on at school? Probably is now, but it wasn't when we were young. And it was just really insightful, and gave us, I feel like, way more of an understanding of what we were going to cover with Rachel when we did. And Rachel might watch this now and be like, oh, okay. But I think that was kind of, these are the links we probably try and go to, because we want to make sure that we've kind of got it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Yourself, G.
I think, it's a lesson that, everyone knows, but I don't think a lot of people practice it well. But it's just a good reminder to kind of like make sure you listen to people. Everyone has their own story, learn a lot about people. And that's kind of like what hospitality is, you learn what people like, what people don't like. And you get invested in people's lives, but without fully being there with them every single day. And so I think with this first season, just kind of like make sure you're always listening out to people and giving people the time of day. And
you could quite easily be that person working with the person we're talking to, right? That's so it's always one of those things. We become a fly on the wall for this whole set of episodes, but we always try and put ourselves in somebody's shoes. So
and it's been super cool getting curious and trying to understand more about everyone and all the topics surrounding them. So it's been some amazing lessons along the way. And outside of the Shift Notes podcast, have you guys had any kind of big life lessons that have come up in the last 6 months? Gian, if you want to kick this one off a minute.
Go on, G.
I mean, trying to learn about being kind to yourself is something that I've never really done to myself. It's probably going to take me a while before I do that, but at least now I know that having podcasts like this and having those connections with people, it's not as daunting anymore.
Yeah. I mean, for me, there's a couple of pieces, and again, it is timing. 2 pieces. One, say no, which we've just covered before. A bit more. The other is time is money. And I guess as specifically as I've just started a business that existed, but I've kind of upped my business into what it is. There's 1,440 minutes in the day. What are you doing in all of them? and obviously a certain whack of that is sleeping. But the whole idea behind that is that money is time, and time is money. So how are you personally going to pay for it? Because if it's not being paid for in money, it's probably being paid for in time and fatigue. So just genuinely looking after yourself, and keeping your timing tight.
Yeah, that's super important. The busier you get, the more you're like, oh my God, I've only got like 2 hours to do everything I need to do. So totally agree with that. One of the big life lessons I've learned in the last, probably this year, I would say this year has been a year of hard growth. And I don't think I'd be the only person to think that or say that. And personally, I found this year has been all about learning how to have really challenging conversations and kind of, address things and be a little bit more upfront. I think in the past, I've kind of let things go past that didn't sit quite right with me, and then ended up feeling quite bad because of it. And this year has been all about learning how to be like, hey, if this happens, it makes me feel this way. And a lot of that was actually through some of the healthy hospital stuff that we were learning about. Like, nonviolent communication. It's like, how do you be true to yourself, acknowledge when things aren't right, and then say that in a way to someone that doesn't like confront that person, or in a way that's you take responsibility for your own feelings. So that's been huge for me. Like, I've had tough conversations with, you know, leaders. I've had tough conversations with friends, with, you know, just in all areas of my life, even with my family. And yeah, I feel like this year is the first time I've really kind of started to be super true to myself and acknowledge things, and also just be cool with feeling stuff. I think like 2 years ago, I kind of went through my brother's accident and like just really suppressed a lot. And this year, I'm just starting to learn that you have to feel things. You have to. It's impossible not to. Like, if you feel angry, feel angry. If you feel sad, and it's fine. It helps you move past whatever you're feeling. And I think we live in a society sometimes where it's like, you just have to be happy all the time. And it's like, no, like it's okay to feel things and be kind to yourself when you do. So that's kind of in my big year 2020 of hard work.
There's reasoning behind everything, right, Laurie?
Yeah.
There's a reason for every feeling.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of it. Lots happened in our world.
Yeah, a lot has happened. But yeah, thank you to all the listeners that have joined us on this little journey. It's only going to get bigger and better. We've got some exciting things coming. But
3
for
a week.
now, 3 a week. Mikey's doing them all by himself. No, we really appreciate everyone taking the time to listen to our podcast and all the kind messages that we've gotten from people, and also all the messages in general. You know, we need to be called out on things, and we appreciate those people that have taken the time to actually listen and do that for us. And I mean, there's no way that we can get any better without having people kind of like steer us in the right direction. So we thoroughly appreciate everyone.
Absolutely.
I appreciate these two as well. These two
Yeah.
people here.
And you.
And you. Well, we can't say that now, can we?
Got in there quick.
It's been a really cool experience from my side, and I think obviously connecting us three together, and we all have very. I think we're quite similar, but we're also all very different, which is really nice. And we just it's just kind of gelled super tight. We're really excited about seeing the level of how we're going to push forward with these next interviewees, and we've got some cool stuff lined up. So yeah, 2021. Feel free to drop us a message or a comment with any episodes that you've loved, or any lessons or things that you've taken out of this, and even some suggestions for people you'd like to see us interview next year. For sure.
All ears. So thank you guys so much for listening to us. I know we've had some really dedicated listeners as well, so it's been really cool hearing from some people in the industry being like, yeah, I've listened to every single episode so far, and I'm like, really? Cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is 10 hours, my friend.
Yeah, you have listened to a lot of us dribbling on.
We haven't even listened to that.
I feel like I have. So, yeah, through all the timestamps. Oh my goodness. But honestly, it's been so much fun, and thank you for being part of our journey. That's us for 2020.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Next year.
Bye.